So Barrister, I think we can get into it right away. I mean, let's have your, I mean, just go right
Okay.
into it. Afterwards, we're going to have a few talking points, then thereafter take a few questions, and that will be it. But let's get into it straight away. I'm sure you can share your slides from your end, right? You can, right? Are you sharing your slide or you just want to go into it straight away?
Okay.
If you can.
The slides can be shared from your end. It's going to
Okay,
be
so
easier that way.
Angela,
Mhm.
can somebody, Angela or Chopper, please, can you share the slide while Barrister just you can just
Okay.
get into it straight away, Barrister.
No problem. So lest I get accused of talking too much, how much time do I have? Because they say lawyers talk a lot, and I don't want
Um,
to be guilty of that
so
allegation.
this program is just about an hour program. We're going to take questions
Okay.
in between. So if you can do presentation in 25, 30 minutes, that's fine. Then we just take questions because
Okay.
I believe there are going to be other talking points around it. So you can get into it.
Oh,
Please,
good.
Tokwe, can you share his slides, or is it Tokwe Moji or Angela who is doing that for us? Please let somebody do that for Barrister. But Barrister, you can get into it. So.
Okay then. All right. So the title of our conversation today is property ownership, the importance of title documents, and real estate has become the hot cake, the hot cake. When you hear somebody say, "Oh, there's a parcel of land that was, for instance, 12 million naira around 2021, and by 2025 it's around 80 million." Ooh, people like, wow, that's a massive appreciation, and then everyone is sort of interested in real estate. Although I know someone who says he's a digital nomad and would not invest or put his money in anything that is tied down to a location. But that's a conversation for another time. So real estate is the only estate that is real, being the most tangible of all forms of assets. So there are various reasons people own land or own real estate. Some own it for um, some own land to meet the basic need of shelter, that is home ownership, and some own real estate as a store of wealth. So you can find yourself in any category. But everybody is in real estate. You are either an end user, a tenant, or you are a provider. You own a property that you're renting out, or you're in one form of real estate or the other. All right. So it is what it is. Everybody is inside. So what makes a property yours? What makes it yours? That is another way to couch what we are discussing today. What makes a land or a landed property or a house? What makes it truly yours? What makes it truly yours is not just that you are on it or you are living in it. Like some other forms of property, that merely having it might be sufficient proof that you own it. But real estate is immovable. It is in a location, and you could be in Lagos State and own a land or you could be in Ikeja, and your land is in Ikoyi, even though you are not there, but it is yours by virtue of the documents that you have. So title documents is what we call those documents. So a title document is basically a document that identifies a parcel of land or identifies a particular property. I will be making reference to land a lot. So wherever I say land, just know that I'm also talking about house. Because in law, we say that everything on a land, everything attached to a piece of land, apart from mineral resources and all of that, is also part of the land. So a title document identifies a parcel of land. It identifies the transferor and the transferee. And we put it like that. And then it identifies the consideration that was furnished. So when you see a title document, there are certain things that you must be able to see for you to know that, okay, this is a title document. A parcel of land must be identified. So that starts with, um, that is best done with a survey plan. So you see a survey plan that points to where the land is. That's a crucial and vital ingredient of proving that a document is a title document. So the land must be identifiable. And then the person who is transferring the land must be identified. And then the person who is receiving that land must also be identified. And what was paid, what that which we call consideration, must also be identified. So a title document is a kind of contract document too, but has some special features that distinct it from your typical contract. So your title document is what you have to show that this particular land that can be identified belongs to me. Okay, the title document is showing the land, is showing how you got the land. And another important thing that the title document shows is that it shows the history of that land. All right. So because land is not manufactured. So land has been in existence, land has been there for decades, for years and years. So the title document does what we call tracing of title. Okay, you have to trace the roots of title. There has to be a root. How did this land get to the hands of the current person owning it? So it's not like a receipt that you just get for something and then it doesn't show how, if you buy a car, your receipt does not show how the land, how the car was manufactured or who manufactured it. Yeah, you can show who manufactured it, but it's not going to show how it was manufactured or how the car came into being. But a title document will identify we identify what we call tracing of title. So your title has to be traced. It has to be traced, and then it will start usually from who got to the land first, how the land moved from one person to the other. So some kind of unbroken chain of how the land has changed hands up to the current title holder. So the title document has to do that for you. So having done that, it's important that I talk about the major legislations that govern land ownership in Nigeria. There are many of them, and let me quickly drop this disclaimer. This webinar is educational, all right? So whatever you hear on this webinar cannot be translated to be a legal advice. You're still going to need to seek legal counsel from the lawyer if you intend to go into a property transaction. Okay, so property transaction um, is quite technical, unlike other forms of property. You want to buy a car now, somebody brings the car and says, "Oh, it's my car," and then um, you know, to an extent you are comfortable, you can take it. But it's not like land. Someone can just go to a land and just say, "Oh, that land is my land, so I'm selling it to you." There's still so much more that you have to verify. So the major legislations governing land ownership in Nigeria, the first one is the 1999 Constitution. That's the one that guarantees your right to own a property in Nigeria as a Nigerian. So it is a right, okay? It's a constitutional right. So everybody has the right to own land, okay? So that's the first place where the right to own land comes from. So the next one is the Land Use Act. And the Land Use Act is very significant because the Land Use Act vests all land in each state in the governor. And so the governor holds the land in trust for the people. And then he can grant individuals or corporations rights of occupancy, not full ownership. All right. Later in our conversation or as time may permit, I'll talk about what the governor grants, which is the right of occupancy. And the document that goes with that is what we call the certificate of occupancy. So the governor does not confer ownership. It's kind of technical, but it is what it is. Okay. The governor does not confer ownership. He only grants you right of occupancy. So that is what the Land Use Act has done. And the Land Use Act has put, like I said, all the land in the states, it's it vests it in the governor. Yeah, and the governor holds it in trust for every Nigerian. So before we got to title documents, there used to be, I just want to take you down memory lane, what it was like, before we got to documents. You know, before now, before now, there was customary ownership. There was customary ownership of land, and and that's what um, and that's what was obtainable. Okay. Um, okay. I'm sorry. Oh, all right. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure. Okay. So before now, customary laws of land tenure were in the past. In the past, it gave a farmer a feeling of reasonable permanence on the land he cultivates. All right. So due to Nigeria's ethnic, geographical, and cultural diversity, its pre-colonial land tenure system was largely complex. So various ethnic groups practice different customary systems. So when the colonialists came, we started having written laws that govern land administration. So there was the colonial government started formal documentation of rights and interests, with starting with the land registration law in Lagos State in 1863. Then during the colonial period, the British Crown, by invasion, then we came by um, the native land acquisition of 1900. You got to the Rights Ordinance of 1960, and then in 1962, the Northern Nigerian government enacted its own land tenure law, and the trip continued until we got to the Land Use Act in 1978. And the Land Use Act, like I earlier said, gives the governor the power to administer land within the state. So that's just a brief rundown of how title documents came by in Nigeria. You can imagine that if you want to own land today and you still have to go and see one, there are still instances like that, but you can imagine if that's the only system available, that you still have to go and see somebody somewhere, and then you have to go by their custom. Can you imagine that's all that we have today? So the evolution of title documents became expedient, it became necessary, and that has made life easy. So I'm going to talk about, because of limited time now, so I will go into proof of title to land in Nigeria. How do you prove that you own a parcel of land in Nigeria? So there are basically 5 ways that has been laid down by the Supreme Court. All right, the Supreme Court has laid down 5 ways by which you can establish that a parcel of land belongs to you. So the first one is by traditional evidence, because Nigeria is still evolving, unlike developed countries where every parcel of land has been registered. And if you're going to acquire or transfer interest in land, you go to the land registry to get it done. Unlike that, we still have vast parcels of land in Nigeria that are not registered. And the only way title can be acquired there is through traditional evidence. And what is traditional evidence? Traditional evidence is basically the history has handed over from one generation to the other. It's usually that the progenitor um, of that family has or was the first to settle down on that parcel of land, was the first to get there. It's either by hunting or by farming, expedition, and in some cases by conquest. So that history is an acceptable way of proving that the land belongs to you. So a person can come today and say that my forefather 300 years ago was the first person to farm here, and he was unchallenged, and he has been here since then and has handed it over from generation to generation and up to me. One can bring up that history, and it's going to be a valid proof, and it's going to be a valid proof of that title to that land. So that's the first one recognized under our law. There's the one that is also, the second is production of documents. Production of documents of title duly authenticated, unless they are documents 20 years old or more produced from proper custody. So under these documents, under this production of documents, that's where we now have registered titles. That's where um, we have the that's where we have the various registered documents. Um, I'm going to talk about the various registered documents in due course, but the one of the ways by which you can prove that you own a parcel of land is to produce a document that says so, either a registered document or unregistered document, any some kind of document that shows that you have title to that land. So, and then the third way you can prove ownership of land in Nigeria is by acts of possession in and over the land in dispute extended over a sufficient period of time. So if two people are disputing the ownership of a parcel of land, there are instances that the court can say, hey, the person that has been, there's a presumption in favor of the person who is in possession of the land to be the owner of that land. So if somebody has exercised what we call positive, has demonstrated ownership, has rather demonstrated possession, he has stayed on the land and he has been there all this while. So the court can interpret that he owns that land by virtue of that long possession of the land. So that's the fourth way by which that's the third way, sorry, by which title to land can be proven. You don't forget that everything about land boils down to title and possession. Title is stronger than possession. We can be on a parcel of land and not be the owner. So the ownership of land, the first way is through title, that you have the title, you have the proof, you have the documents, or you have the history that says you are the owner of the land. So in special cases, like I said, you being on that parcel of land can be enough proof that you are the owner of the land, provided that the person who is also claiming ownership of that land does not have something superior to that narrative that, oh, I've been on this parcel of land for X period of time. If that person produces a document, it's definitely going to knock out your own account that you have been on that land for such a period of time. So that is that acts of possession. And then the next one is acts of long possession and the enjoyment of other land situated and connected with the land in dispute by locality or similarity, that the presumption under Section 45 of the Evidence Act the Evidence Act applies, and the inference can be drawn that what is true of the one piece of land is likely to be true of the other piece of land. So another way, another way is to say that, for instance, there is plot A, plot B, and plot C. And then there's now dispute about who owns plot B. And the owner of plot A can say that, can prove that I'm the owner of plot A. And that it can be reasonably inferred that by me proving to be the owner of plot A to also be the owner of plot B, it is also a form of legal argument that you can push forward to establish that you are the owner of the subject parcel of land. Okay, so if you have, as I'm going on, I'm sorry, I'll do my best to be as simple as possible. But these things are technical at times, and no matter how you try to simplify it, it's still a technical matter. So if you have questions, you can put it down, and I can answer the question. So acts of long possession, that's the fourth way, and the fifth way is proof of possession of connected or adjacent land. So you can also prove that you own a parcel of land by reason of you being in possession of an adjacent land or an adjoining land. So initially I said that you are proving to be the owner of a parcel of land by you successfully proving that you are the owner of an adjoining land. So another way is that you proving that you are in possession of a connected or adjacent land. So this one I just spoke about and the one I spoke about last, they sound alike, all right? But in practicality and in modern times that we're in, the most prevalent ways by which people now establish that they own land is majorly through production of title documents or narration of traditional history. That's the commonest ones that people use to establish title. Um, Sorry, I just remember something I want to put it down so it doesn't skip my mind. Uh, yes. Okay. So that is that about proof of title to land in Nigeria. And if you'd like to leave this session feeling like a lawyer, or probably making people feel that you might be legally inclined, just tell them that proof of title to land can be found in the case of Idundu versus Okumagba. That's the locus classicus case in Nigeria for proof of title to land. All right. So you can cite that anywhere. That the locus classicus for proof of title to land in Nigeria is the case of Idundu versus Okumagba, where it was there that the Supreme Court laid these 5 ways of proving title to land, and that has been the fallback case for many uh, land matters. So, while speaking, I mentioned that production of documents is one of the ways of proving title to land. Whenever you hear title to land, it means ownership of a parcel of land. You know, when you hear title to land, and you say, "Oh, I have title to that land. I have title to that land." You are simply saying that I have valid proof that I'm the owner of that land. I have legal proof that I'm the owner of that land. You know, lawyers at times just like to complicate things. so that's the legal term, right? A title to land is basically saying that ownership of land. So I'm going to talk now about the major title documents we have in Nigeria. Okay, like I said, even if you go to courts where people are trying to rely on traditional evidence, they still produce some form of document or the other. The minimum they produce is the survey drawing, right? So they have to show that to say, oh, the land, because every land dispute, one vital point that must be, one vital fact that must be proven is the existence and the actual location of the land. The land must be identifiable. Okay, so you can't just say, "Oh, I own 2 plots in Egbe." So that can be anywhere. So if you go for that, say 2 plots in so locality, in this local government, in this town, along this street, you know, to make it much better and easy, just produce a survey drawing, and that identifies that can pin that parcel of land that we're talking about. So the major title documents we have in Nigeria starts with the Gazette. All right, Gazette is the legal instrument by which excision is formalized. So excision happens when the governor, or through anybody appointed by the governor, it marks a certain expanse of land that says this land, we this land has been excised, sort of released to this family or this community or this individual. So occasionally the government can look at a particular town, usually not a town, a village. The excisions happen usually in villages. For instance, in Lagos State can go to somewhere in Egbe and can look at a location like somewhere like, okay, an example is Alaro City. Alaro City axis used to belong to some families, and the government was interested in establishing a free trade zone in that axis. And so, a way by which the government tries to seamlessly acquire land is to approach the former owners and say that, okay, we want to acquire X amount of land in your neighborhood, and then we would give you a registered title over this remaining size of land. The difference between the value of a parcel of land that has registered title and the one that doesn't have registered title is so massive. Okay, it's quite massive. So when the government intends to acquire an area like that, so they approach those people and say, okay, we're going to acquire. Okay, for instance, you may have 100 hectares that belongs to your family. Okay, the government wants to take 40 hectares out of that, and then the remaining 60 hectares, we're going to give you gazette. We're going to excise it to you. So that gives them some form of registered title over that land. So it's no longer just that, that they have traditional title over that land. They now have a registered title because a gazette is a registrable title. And so you can go to the land registry and you can always verify a gazette. So the first one is a gazette. The next one is the land certificate. The land certificate is quite old. It's quite old. If you go to some areas in Omole and some areas in Yaba, you still find properties that were that their root of title is the land certificate, and that's the one that you see that has they usually title their registration particulars often start with MO something something. You see MO once they call it MO something something, it's usually a land certificate. And the next one is a certificate of occupancy. So certificate of occupancy is usually land certificate is issued by the governor. The certificate of occupancy is also issued by the governor. The government no longer issues land certificates. What you find now is certificate of occupancy. That's what the government issues. And then this one you will find it to be titled the registration particulars is often 24/24 1995. You see something like that. That's usually how certificate of occupancy. And the land certificates usually come in color white. The certificate of occupancy will come usually in color yellow. That is the old certificate of occupancy. Lagos State government has transitioned to electronic COO. So you're not going to see the land certificate. Okay, land certificate comes in flexible paper. Flexible paper, you see it's flexible white paper like that. You see at the front, you see land certificate. The certificate of occupancy usually comes color yellow, like thick cardboard. So that's what the certificate of occupancy looks like. So both of them are issued by the governor. All right. So the certificate of occupancy in Lagos State has transitioned, like I said, has transitioned from the yellow cardboard that we know. It's now like just a paper. It's like just a paper. It's like just a regular paper, but it contains all the information, the photograph of the landowner. You will see it there. The survey will be there. The land rents, you will see the ground rent, you will see it there. So, okay, so the next one is your deed of assignment. So deed of assignment flows from these first three, and which other one now? Yeah, typically your deed of assignment flows from these three documents. So a person who has these first three can validly give a deed of assignment, or somebody who has a deed of assignment that flows from these first three can also issue a deed of assignment. So deed of assignment, though is used loosely by many people, that they just say, oh, I'm giving you deed of assignment, deed of assignment. The deed of assignment comes into use when somebody has a registered interest over a parcel of land. So assignment is a legal term that you use in saying that I am transferring to you my unexpired registered interest in this parcel of land. So that is what a deed of assignment does. It transfers on unexpired. So when I say unexpired, a certificate of occupancy or any of these, most of these documents places some kind of term. Okay, now, when I spoke about the Land Use Act, I did mention that the power of the governor to grant right of occupancy. Right of occupancy over a parcel of land is for maximum of 99 years. 99 years. After 99 years, it reverses to the governor. So who will also naturally always renew. I don't think no. Some certificates of occupancy are not up to 99 years, some are 25 years. There are other instances that it's lesser than 99. But the governor does, his power does not exceed 99 years. So if somebody who has 99 years wants to transfer that land, if he has spent 40 years out of the 99 years, so what he has unexpired is just 55 years. So after deed of assignment, we have a deed of sublease. Or deed of sublease works with deed of lease. There are some areas in the Ikeja GRA, or let me just say the whole of Ikeja GRA is on lease. There's a building lease that was between, I think, the colony of Lagos State and somebody. I've forgotten. But the title document, they are buying a property in GRA, Ikeja GRA, is a building lease agreement. And some other parts of Lagos will have that distinct title document. So most times, what flows from there is a sublease or even a deed of assignment. So a sublease flows from a lease. So the next one, which is what many people would actually be able to get, is what is known as deed of deemed grants, deed of assignment on deemed grants. Okay, so this is what you process when you buy land from Omonile. So if you buy land from somebody who has traditional evidence as their proof of title, and you want to register your title, you want to have a registered interest over that land, what you have is deed of deemed grants. So that's the name of that document, and it is what you go and you take to the government. So other documents that are relevant, deed of mortgage. Deed of mortgage is relevant because if you are buying a parcel of land and you run a search and you find out that there's a mortgage that's registered against that title document, means that property is encumbered, and you need to make sure that that deed of mortgage is released. Okay, the mortgagor is usually the bank. Sorry, the mortgagor is usually the property owner. The mortgagee is usually the bank. So if you are trying to acquire property and you find out that there's a deed of mortgage, deed of legal mortgage over that property, then you have to process the release of that mortgage before that property can be. So if you don't have all these registered instruments, you can also have a contract of sale. A contract of sale is a valid proof also, though it's not registered, and the enforceability is limited, but it's still a proof that you have bought the parcel of land. It gives you what we call equitable interest over a parcel of land. And there's what is also known as conditional sale, contract of conditional sale. Contract of conditional sale is what you get from real estate companies that tell you that, okay, pay 20% today, spread your balance over 60, over 12 months and all of that. Even though they give you a contract of sale at that point, it is conditional. It is a conditional sale. It is not a final sale. It is a conditional sale in essence that until you are fully satisfied the consideration being the sale price, until you are fully paid, that sale has not become final. So it is still conditional. So these are some of the title documents in Nigeria. And like I said, they are very important in you trying to put that you on a parcel of land. Okay, I'm really running out of time. So this is just a bonus. Land acquisition due diligence. If you're trying to buy land, first and foremost, before I even tell you this, make sure you engage the appropriate professionals. If you're trying to acquire land. Yes, whether you are in the business or you are buying it for yourself, you should engage professionals. I know that AI can help you with a lot of things. I know that Google can help you with a lot of things. But if you're trying to buy land in Nigeria, in the Nigeria of today, engage professionals. Engage your surveyor. Surveyor is the one that's going to help you establish that the land is not under government acquisition that the land is free, that the surveyor will let you know if the land, whatever zone that land falls. If you're trying to buy the land to build your house, the surveyor will tell you this, and this land area has been zoned as agric. Or when you're trying to buy, there's the government plans to run a drainage through that place. You know, all those things. The surveyor will tell you. You check. A surveyor will do what is called charting. The surveyor will pick the location of the land you want to buy and then cross-reference it against the or like the global survey of the entire state. I can tell you that, oh, what you're trying to buy, oh, this is where it falls. It will tell you whether it falls within acquisition or not. So engage a surveyor. You want to engage a valuer also to make sure that the property, depending on the level of transaction you're going into, you want to ensure that you are getting, you are able to make the right offer. You are able to buy the property at the appropriate value. You need to engage a lawyer too for legal due diligence, for documentation, and even for perfection. And then, if something goes wrong, have somebody that understands the transaction and can help you make the necessary trouble. So you need a lawyer. If you're going into construction, you need to engage an architect, civil engineer, all the professionals. And if you are transacting in your state that has been fully built, you must ensure that you get the um, building approval, get the building approval for that building. The reason is that you must ask for it. It's one of the due diligence that you have to do. You are buying a fully built property. Request for the building approval because Lagos state government can wake up tomorrow and say that your building is along the drainage, and and they can just say, okay, bring the approval for this building. And you see, building approval is in different phases, various phases. There's the approval you get at the beginning of construction. There are approvals you get during construction. There's the approval you get at the end of construction. That's the one you should ask for if you're buying a fully built property, to ensure that you are safe, especially if it's an area that is known, especially if you're buying anywhere in Lekki, those fast developing houses. So some people are able to boycott, or did I say boycott? Some people are able to, find their way around today, but tomorrow things can be really, really funny. So that is that. I think I should stop now so that we can take questions. Something that I would have spoken about if there was a time is for young people that are on the call now, it seems like owning land is like an impossible dream. In Nigeria that we are in today, you just wonder owning land and owning your own house might seem like how possible is that? And the quick answer to that is that, man, you better be real with yourself. There are many young people I come across today say, oh, I don't want to leave, I don't want to go and buy land in a far location and all that. And I'm sorry, the far location keeps getting closer. Rent in Lagos State is getting out of hand. So you better start planning and start identifying locations that your income can actually go for. And then so that 10 years, 15 years from now, you're still not in the same spot saying that, oh, I wish I can have my own personal plan. So I'll just stop there right now because of time.
Wow, wow, wow. Barrister Folarin, you see, I was just here, just smiling, okay, because you've just you succeeded to take us back to the classroom. I was just here listening, and thank you so much. I'm sure for everyone who's on this call, if there's one thing you picked so much. Honestly, whilst listening to you, I was just really smiling. I was like, boy, I mean, this is really interesting. And thank you so very much. I mean, we have some few talking points, but before I go into the talking points I do have, once again, for everyone who's on this call, I'm sure you've listened to Barrister Folari, broke it down, simplified it, and made it a lot. For me, I've been practicing for a while. I mean, not as a lawyer, okay? I've been practicing as an SSW for a while. And I must honestly confess that the things I heard here, and that's why most times we hear that there's no end to learning. And so this is part of it. And honestly, the reason why we do come up with this webinar. Thank you so very much. So for everyone, I'm sure if you personally want to have one question or the other, please, you may want to raise your hand. And at some point, if you raise your hand, I will get from the back end from them to promote you so that you can ask the question directly. But if you also feel that you want to drop the questions, you can drop the question, and we're at the chat box or question and answer area. We're going to come back to them and take those questions. So please do well to ask your question or raise your hand. I mean, we're going to give a few persons. I can see that one or two questions already coming in, but if you want us to promote you as a panel, that you speak directly, and we're going to do that. Barrister, thank you so very much. You said something like, I laughed when you mentioned that, hey, AI will help you, Google will help you, but in the Nigeria of today, when it has to do with, title document and real estate, consult your professionals. I mean, that is very key. You talked about engaging professionals, and that was very, very strong upon me when you did mention it. And I also love the fact when you talked about the 5 ways. I've never, as somebody who practices, I only talk about, oh yes, you have your CFO. Even when I'm doing my evaluation, CFO is what I look up onto. But when you talked about the Supreme Court, talking about the five angle, that was a new dimension to me. And you also said, you talked about, if I want to live here and also try to appear to be like a lawyer, I mean, the local standard I should use and all that. Anyway, that's by the way. But thank you very much. So let's go back to a few talking points. When you were talking about, you talked about Gazette, you talked about land certificate. And if there's another thing I love so much in your delivery, is a point that you even talked about some location with some practical example. You talked about GRA, for example. You talked about Omonle, which is with land certificate. And I think this is basically to guide our people, at least from this conversation. If you person were on this platform, we're able to understand that, hey, if I'm doing transaction in this area, I mean, these are likely things I'm going to see. That's not to say you're not going to engage your professional or your lawyer, but these are likely things. You also went also ahead to talk about even to the tone of the color of the what it looks like and all that, just to guide us and all that. All right. So now, Barrister, from your starting point, there's something you did mention, and I wrote it here. You said the 1999 Constitution, particularly Section 43, I looked at it from your presentation, everybody has the right to own a land. Now, how true is this one? How true is this in line with the reality of our days? For example, I'm not from Lagos State. Or probably let me use my own town. Maybe I'm from Ogbomoso or your state. And I mean, somebody who is not from Oyo State or Ogbomoso, for example, comes into Ogbomoso and I say, yes, normally I should have the right to own a land anywhere in Nigeria. So I have the right to own land in Ogbomoso in Oyo State. How practicable are these, even regardless of the fact that the Constitution says that you have the right to own a land? I'm talking about in the reality of our days. I've heard people who talked about you go to certain places, you cannot even purchase, you cannot even own title to a land. Please, we want you to weigh in with your wealth of knowledge and experience. And based on this conversation that we're having, and in line with the Constitution of the Nigeria, how practicable is this?
Okay, the 1999 Constitution, of course, is not the first constitution that was made in Nigeria. There have been a series of constitutions. The 1999 Constitution is just more like a reproduction of the 1979 Constitution. Or yeah, okay, there was 1979, so there were other constitutions. So where I'm going to is that that provision in the Constitution was in response to an anomaly that was obtainable where certain people don't want to sell land to certain people. So that constitution that provision of the Constitution guarantees you the right. You have the legal right to buy land anywhere in it. Every Nigerian has the right to own property anywhere in Nigeria. As long as you find a willing seller and you are also a willing buyer, you can own land anywhere in Nigeria. So, but for political reasons, we can't shy away from that. For political reasons, we see states and we see governments in states limiting the size of land that they are registering in favor of non-indigenous of those states. But that is unconstitutional. All right. So anybody who has the money can buy land anywhere in Nigeria. So, but that doesn't also take away the customary issues. Okay, there are some places, some parts of Nigeria that they will tell you that, oh, we cannot, we don't sell land to certain tribes. But we are also learning also that those places, it's not all the land there that they say they can't sell to outsiders. There are some parcels of land that they have designated as community land or something, and for personal reasons, they don't want to sell them to outsiders. But generally speaking, any Nigerian can validly own land anywhere in Nigeria. So the practicality is still dependent a lot on the politicians, on the politicians. If a non-Lagosian is trying to, I've heard of instances, where somebody who is not from a state has actually bought a large expanse of land and has validly bought it, paid for it, in possession. But at the point of trying to register his title, the government became uncomfortable that, oh, why will a non-indigene buy and own this expanse of land? So in reality, that constitutional provision is still being, is not, some people are still tampering with it. But legally speaking, and the truth is that you can actually sue to enforce that right. You can actually sue to enforce that right. So if you buy land somewhere, or some people are depriving you opportunity to buy land somewhere, if you have the strength and you have the time, you can sue, and you can get the court's pronouncement in your favor.
Thank you very much, Barrister. Okay, so once again, please, if you have your question, don't hesitate to raise up your hand. I know there's a question already there, but we're still going to come back to that question. But in case you have questions, please, but from the back end, we're able to promote you if you want to ask any question directly from Barrister Folarin. Now, let's go on further. Now, Barrister, while you are listening all of those stuff, the other question that comes to mind is to talk about the administrative bottlenecks in the possibility of having those titles. You talked about, oh yes, I mean the traditional evidence. One thing I've also realized from the lecture, the conversation, is the fact that even the traditional evidence, it's also, I mean, there's some sort of documentation. So two questions in one. Now, there's some sort of evidence, so to say. I mean, you can't claim to say traditional evidence and not having some sort of evidence. Now, the first question is this: then what is the import of documentation, right? Can you also now enlighten us the more the import or the importance of documentation? Because in your last commentary, you talked about, oh, there are young people who want to acquire property, howbeit maybe far distances, these are owned by, by local people and all that. Now, what is the importance? To what extent is this importance of documentation? That's the first angle of the question. The second leg of the question will also now be the process of acquiring your title. I talked about the administrative bottlenecks, right? How long does it take? For example, you talked about Gazette, you talked about land certificates, but from your own experience, I mean, how long does it take for you to actually process your title documents from your experience in the field?
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. So the importance of documents is that documents are more definite than, traditional evidence is typically word of mouth. Somebody narrating that this and that, And then traditional evidence has its loopholes. You are trying to describe a parcel of land under traditional evidence. You are saying, oh, from one tree to the other tree. So those are the issues with that. So what if that tree is no longer there? How do you identify that parcel of land? So the first thing that a title document does is that it identifies that land. So any title document you are getting, it must clearly identify it. And the clearest way and the surest way of identifying a parcel of land is obtaining a survey drawing, survey plan for that land. Anybody can pick up a properly prepared survey plan. Anybody can pick it up and hit the road and find that land. So that's the first importance of a title document. So the second thing is that it identifies who sold to who and who bought, and it shows what was paid. And then it also narrates the history of the land. So these 5 vital ingredients are key in trying to establish that you are the owner of the land. So if you have a document, a valid document, a certificate of occupancy, a registered deed of assignment, if you have all of that, you are safe. And so that's the biggest importance of a title document. It guarantees your story. Fine, a title document is also a narration of story. If you look at it, or you go and see how they narrate stories, but it has been documented and it's in a permanent form, like we say. And like we say in law, that a document speaks for itself. Instead of somebody narrating, a document speaks for itself. So the document can be read and the document will speak for itself. And you can always get all the details about the property, about the owner, about how much was paid, about where the land is, about who owned it first, and other conditions that pertain to the ownership of that land. And so the second thing about how long it takes to perfect title in Lagos, for instance, it takes average of now I'm going to be very careful and don't because
I know, no,
Lagos State government.
there's a caveat already, it's just for educational purpose. I know, right?
If you check Lagos State government will tell you that I think officially they are claiming that in 6 months or in fewer months you can get your title registered, but it actually takes longer. And it's going to take you okay, the duration of time it will take you is dependent on you again. The process has been digitized one way or the other. In Lagos State, now if you're trying to register a deed of assignment, usually somebody carries a physical file from one office to the other, and then if you want to track your file, you go and check a book somewhere, check this book has been moved there and all of that. But Lagos State has improved in that aspect. You'll be getting mails on where your file has reached. Of course, the mail can come 4 weeks after that process has happened, but there are mails that you'll be getting saying, okay, your file has moved there and here and all of that. So it can take 1 year. It depends on the person. It depends on the groundwork you are doing and the number of foot soldiers you have moving the file for you. Even though it has been digitized, there's still some ground movement that you have to do to determine how long it will take you. So it can take a year. If you move fast enough, you follow your file from one desk to the other. Because perfection in Lagos State is quite a little bit, it's quite complex. You submit at one desk, it goes to survey, from survey it returns to, it can go to like 6 different agencies before it gets to where you get your registered document. So it can take, I can't say in definite times how long it will take, but I'm saying that in a year you can actually perfect the title document in Lagos State, barring any queries and issues with the previous owner.
Thank you very much, Barrister. Before we go to the questions that we already have here, I mean, I can see we already have about 3 or 4 questions but we're going to come back to it. And please, again, if you want to ask questions, we may give 1 or 2 persons to ask question directly. This is very interesting. And let me quickly mention, Angela, I think you are listening to me. We have to bring Barrister Folarin back. We definitely have to bring this topic is so interesting. We definitely have to get him back on this call because this is so enlightening and very, very educative. Now, so let me come back to the last talking point before we go to um, the question. Let me ask this question. Now, the question I want to ask now has to do with um okay, the issue with awareness and awareness, right? Um, Based on your last question, that the question I asked and your response to say it takes maybe number of time and all that, do you honestly think this will encourage people, right, to pursue valid title documents? Now, if that is not going to help people or encourage people, what else from your own experience would you think should be the driving force to encourage people to go all out the way to ensure that they secure a title for their document? I hope you get that question very well, right? I hope you get me. So I'm saying that the issue with the fact that it takes longer time, which can actually discourage people to get their title document. If it's discouraging people and it's not encouraging enough, what other issues will you think should be the factor that you, from your own point of view, will say people should go ahead to ensure that they get this? Because at the end of the day, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Now, that's the first leg of the question. The other question I'm going to ask before we now go to the general question is to say, um, when you when you eventually okay, sorry, earlier on you talked about the number of years, 99 years. From your own experience, is it at the discretionary of the governor, which of course I maybe believe, but let me hear from you. Can the governor decide to say, I'm not giving you 99, I'm only giving you 25, I'm only giving you 15 years? And if that is the case, what is the economic advantage or disadvantage of the number of years? I also recall while you were speaking earlier on, you mentioned that, oh, a land that has title has value, which of course, that's the term we also come in as value as. But let's hear from you. If they're giving you 25, if the governor is saying, okay, at my discretion, I'm only giving you 25. At my discretion, I'm only giving you 15 years. At my discretion, I'm giving you 99 years. What economic advantage? And if at the end of the day, if it revert back to the governor, what is also the process? Are the process also to get additional years? Are they very, very cumbersome? Those are two questions we have before we now go to the general questions. I hope you get those questions very well.
Okay. Yes, yes. I'll start from the last question. So the general thing is 99 years. Every COO, most COOs come up with 99 years. So there are some areas that have been designated somehow by the government. Some of them are industrial areas. Some of them are special allocations. So you don't get up to 99 years. But the general thing is that every COO gives you 99 years. So that is the answer to that. I mean, it's not something that is absolutely discretionary. It's usually about policies, okay? Because land administration is within the purview of the state government. So, like I said, generally, every COO will give you 99 years. But there are some areas you would have known before the COO, as you are applying for the COO, you would have known that for this particular area, this is the tenure, this is the term that the governor grants. So I know that some industrial areas, if you are getting the COO, you're not going to get 99 years. So the industrial COO, some other kind of COO. You know, COO can be, the COO would tell you what you use the land for, whether residential, whether industrial, whether agriculture, whether, you know, so agriculture too, you don't get 99 years. The COO will not give you 99 years. So if the government is giving you COO over an agri land, it's usually not 99 years. So, but the general rule is that it's 99 years. So the governor exercises discretion. The discretion is not haphazard, so to say. It is usually in form of policies to say this particular zone, every part of the state has been zoned. They tell you this zone, the C of O there is this number of years, this zone. So it is not as if they are targeting any individual to say, you, I'll give you 25, you, I'll give you 30, you, I'll give you 40. No, it's usually by policy to say, okay, this particular zone, the C of O there is this particular term. So the first question about perfection. So the thing about perfection is that just start. Okay? Don't be weary by it's going to take so long. Just start. You'll be pushing it step by step, stage by stage, you are moving. Because if you start today, you are not in the same place with somebody in 6 months' time. You won't be in the same spot with somebody who has not started. And if you are not ready to start, there are some documents that you should have collected, that you have with you and in place. Okay, so when we try to advise clients buying property, especially from somebody who has a registered title, most times if they don't engage a professional, they don't engage a lawyer who actually specializes in that field. You can just buy a property and then, okay, you collect the title document, original one. Okay, I've collected it. Oh, yes. And then the person signs, maybe you say sign contract of sale for me or issues the receipt and all of that. That's not sufficient for you to go and register your own interest. There is land for mercy in Lagos State. There are some information that you will need from the person selling to you that will aid your own title registration. So at the point of acquisition and where you are parting with money, something that we tell clients is that let us have a perfect exchange. The exchange would be, this is the price, sale price, this is what I want. Because many times, after you finish a property transaction, the person that sold, you may never see it. I've done transactions that after buying, the person that sold, we could not find the person again. After saying the person just left Nigeria and became incommunicado. So if we had not obtained all the necessary information, for instance, you need to get the person's, there's land for months the person needs to sign, you need to get the person's tax ID, possibly, yes, you need to get the person's means of identification. So there are a number of documents that you should actually have collected and have in your possession. And anytime you are ready to go and do your registration, you can proceed. So even if all is not set for registration, but make sure all the documents you need to obtain from the person who is selling to you, you have obtained them. So that I hope that answers.
Yes, it does. So, Barrister, let's go to the questions that we do have now. We have quite a bit of them, so we'll quickly go into them. I'm sure this will also be some great talking points. This person is asking, Mr. Timothy Bangboye, he's saying, excellent presentation. He said, well done, sir. He's asking, he said, a quick question. He said, recently, my dealings with land sellers show that many of them don't have documentations with root of the title that can be traced back to, say, 15 to 30 years back. I have had to advise buyers against proceeding with such transaction. What is your experience in this regard, sir? Did you get that question, Barrister?
Yes, I get that question. So many times there's a disconnect because we advise a number of real estate companies too. There's a disconnect between legal department and salespeople. Many times, salespeople already have a documentation that they are using to sell, and many times they don't go back to legal to get further consultation on some of the things. So that precludes or that makes certain documents not fully complete. But typically, a sale of land documents should identify or should narrate the history of the land. In some instances, the people selling, the family, I suppose this one is the one that you buy directly from the families. So many times the family or the problem starts with the real estate companies not conducting appropriate due diligence at the point of acquisition. What we normally do for clients that are in that field is that, look, we forget about the typical lawyer thing. The typical, if you want to advise that area, you cannot be the typical lawyer that sits in the office and then you are writing. You have to go out. You go and sit down with the family people and ask questions. Who is the first person? I've been to places where I even said they had to show me that, see, our great great grandfather, that's where he's buried. So it starts with the due diligence that the real estate company has to conduct. But many times, real estate companies, they just like, they see the land, they see the people, and they say, yeah, pay here, they pay, nobody is troubling them, and they feel okay, like, okay, the land is okay. But the questions that need to be asked is, okay, can you tell us the history of the family? Many families are a little bit reluctant to tell you their history, but you have to demand. Like, tell me, who is the first person in your family that got here? Give me the name. What year? Can you remember? The person that is saying is the head of the family. Do you remember any story your father told you? So it's all of that that should be captured in the document that is given to subsequent buyers. Okay? And what you mostly get from real estate companies is not what you, when it is time for you to go and register. Okay, I'm sorry if you lost me a bit. Yeah, so when it's time to register, okay, let me put it like this. Many buyers from real estate companies, what they get at best is a contract of sale. What you should get ultimately is deed of assignment on deed grants. That is the one that is presentable at the Lagos State Registry for registration. So inside that, there will be a narration, however brief, on how the family became the owners of the land. And so it's something you should always request for.
Thank you, Barrister. All right, let's go to the other 1 minute. I think let's go to the other questions. I think we have 3 of them here. Okay, Olufemi is saying, contract of conditional sales. Are owners allowed to change the terms of sale before the completion of consideration? Barrister, did you get that question?
Yeah, I got the question. A contract is binding on all parties, and parties are precluded from deviating from the terms of that contract. I know that this person, the question might be deeper than this. So I'll give you examples. There are scenarios where developers and real estate companies agree on a price for a parcel of land or for a house. Most times, the varying of prices happen when it's a built property. You know, they can tell you there's this that happened, there's that happened. But in strict legal application, a contract is clear. The terms of a contract cannot be rewritten, provided that you have also satisfied all your obligations under the contract. So if the contract says this is your payment plan, if you don't abide by that payment plan, you have also breached the contract. And so if you want to raise a concern that, oh, why are they trying to change the terms of the contract? Your hands are no longer clean. And in law, we say that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. So if you're already in breach of the contract, then the seller too might be in a position to try to tweak the terms of the contract. But if you are in compliance with the terms of your contract and you have fulfilled your obligations under the contract, the real estate company, the developer, whoever is selling, does not have the right to deviate from the terms of the contract. They cannot change the terms along the way. And you must insist that this is what the contract is. And that's why it's always advisable to engage a lawyer from the go. So the lawyer can ensure that certain terms are there. I've seen a contract before, a contract of conditional sale, where the seller invariably just put in the contract that, look, I can change the terms of this contract unilaterally. There are so many things that were there that were in favor of the seller, and the buyer didn't engage us early. And so they had signed, and it puts too much power in the hands of the seller. So it also boils down to the importance of engaging professionals right from the get-go.
Thank you, Barrister. Okay, the other question, Mr. Udoma, is saying, what's the perfection process for types of lands apportioned to members of the extended family within any form of root title papers?
This question is not simple, though. And the person simplified the question.
Well,
I don't understand the
it's a
question.
what's the perfection process for types of land
Uh,
apportioned to members of the extended family within any form of the root title papers?
Okay,
If
I'm going to answer it the best way I can. If the land, if it's a vast land, a large expanse of land, I suppose that it has been shared amongst members of the family, or yeah, maybe they have shared it. The perfection process for them is still that now, if you are getting any document from a family, it is family land, like we always say, or when they say money there, most times, in fact, all the time, the person signing off cannot be one person. There has to be at least like four people. The Oloyede, there has to be the Oloyede and at least one member of the family. That's the head of the family and one member of the family. And in most cases, you have up to four of them. So if you're a member of that family and a portion has been shared to you, it's still the same process. The Oloyede and the others too have to assign it to you. So after they have assigned it to you by valid grant, you will now you can now go and perfect it. So if that is what you are asking, then that's the process. It still has to be the head of the family and the other principal members are still the ones that will sign it off to you, and then the document that was signed to you is what you take to the land registry. And I
all
wish to
right,
also state that, see, many of the things that I'm explaining here, they are just the general terms, general application. So many times the law applies to particular situations. So if I have the clearer information about each situation, then the advice can be more precise.
thank you, Barrister. So let's take the other two more questions that we have. One of anonymous attendees is saying, in the real estate market of today, where people buy block of flats and buildings and not just land, he says, I want to ask, is there a difference between the documents to own a property and to own a land?
Okay. The flat, every house, be it a building or whatever, is on a parcel of land. Every floor in a building is another land. If there is a building that has 5 stories, if you want to go and do perfection, each story is another land. So you can get a survey drawing. You can, if you are not on the ground floor, on the land, that's where you say that's the land. If you are on one of the floors, on the upper floors, you can get a survey. So the way the survey is prepared, there are indications that will show in the survey that this particular land is on the second floor or the third floor or the fifth floor of a particular building. So you can obtain a survey, any property that you can obtain a survey plan for, you can perfect it. So if you are on a flat, you occupy a flat in a building, you can, the square meters of your flat can be surveyed out. And survey drawing will detail it that your land, your land inside this building is this square meters. And you will now do, if it's in Lekki, there's what we call subdivision. Because in a place like Lekki 1, all the parcels of land there, they are already in a composite plan, So the land that you are on might have been registered by government to be for instance, 800 square meter land. So if you want to do anything on that land again, you will do what we call subdivision. And then maybe it's 200 square meters you are taking from the 800 square meters. So the original survey plan will be subdivided to show your own portion of the land, and you can do your registration.
Thank you, Barrister. So I think we've got one more question and we'll be wrapping up. Okay, so this person is saying, can a single piece of land have a CFO allocated to different owners? If yes, who is the real owner and now is such issues rectified? I take that again. Can a single piece of land, a CFO allocated to different owners? If yes, who is the real owner, and how is such issues rectified?
Okay. In the Lagos state of today, that can no longer happen. I can say that confidently. But years ago, such things were happening. Such things were happening. People, in fact, a practical one, while we were doing a perfection for the bank, there was a parcel of land that was a corner piece. So one side of the land is a particular street, another side of the land is on another street, but it's still one parcel of land. And the guy with his intention, but I'm remembering his name now, obtained a COO for one street, obtained a COO for bearing the address of one street, and then obtained a COO bearing the other streets too. So he had two documents. But that one is that's somebody that is criminally minded. But in a scenario like this, where government validly issues two certificates of occupancy for one parcel of land, at the end of the day, we'll track back to who is supposed to be the valid owner of the land. So we'll go back to who did the government allocate it to first? Who got the allocation first? Who satisfied all the conditions? Yes, there are interesting people in government that try to, do funny things, and you have to fight back. So in a situation like that, if you were the first person to get the allocation, you made the payment to satisfy, you are the first person to satisfy the various conditions, then it's your CFO that will stand. You go to court, the court is going to cancel the other one. That's the way it works. And let me just quickly share something. The thing about CFO is not the almighty. So, like I earlier said, the governor is only granting you the right of occupancy. He's not granting you ownership. The right of occupancy that the governor is granting you is predicated on the story that you brought regarding that land. An example is Magodo GRA. Okay, Magodo GRA, everybody there had the CFO. It was government allocation. But the process of acquiring the land was faulty by the government years ago. Years ago, the process of government acquiring, that was during the time of, was it Marwa or who? Acquiring that place, the process of acquiring it was faulty. And the original owners challenged it in court. They had been on the case until they got to the Supreme Court and got the judgment, and they came to enforce that judgment. In fact, the governor of Lagos State went there. If you read the story, they turned him back because, hey, they have a Supreme Court judgment which says that your own story about owning this land is more viable and more legally has a better legal standing than the CFO. So many times you can have a CFO, and if the owners of the land, the original owners of the land, government did not acquire it properly from them, they can challenge the government, and that CFO, which seems like to be the almighty title, will become nothing but waste paper. So you still have to make sure that the story that predates your acquisition of the land is very clear, and not just that you have a certificate of occupancy.
Wow.
In a
Wow,
scenario
wow,
like
wow.
that, in a scenario like that, where there are two certificates of occupancy, the government will cancel one. You will just bring it to if it was done erroneously, you will bring it to the attention of the government that government, you have issued two certificates of occupancy regarding one land. The government will check its records. They will confirm this is the first one we issued. And the first one that was issued will be the valid. So that's the way it works. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much, Barrister Folarin Oloyede. I must say, and for everyone who's been on this call, this has been an eye-opener. And the reason why we do this in Obosele and Co., why we come with all these topical issues, is just what you just heard from the barrister himself. I mean, when he started, he talked about the 5 ways where from the Supreme Court and all that. He went into the details of this, and it was an eye-opening for everyone who participated and others who are also going to be listening via YouTubes and all that. This is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful presentation. We want to thank you, Barrister, and for everyone who is on this call, we want to thank you greatly. For all of you who have asked questions, thank you so very much. If you still have one or two questions that you want to push to Barrister Folarin Oloyede, is an expert when it comes to ownership laws and regulatory compliance and business transactions. And you can send in your questions to us, or forward it to him, and he will gladly respond to those questions. For those of you who have actually dropped in your email addresses, we're going to send you the slide of the presentation, and please do well to reach out back to us at Bosele & Co., where we can always give you all the necessary information. And to wrap up, you heard the lawyer also mention one of the things he mentioned earlier on when he was mentioned, and he said it emphatically, is that the need to engage professionals. Please and please, this is very, very important for those who are investors and for those who deal with other people who are investing. This is very, very key. And there's no better place to get some of this insight and understanding other than Obosele & Co. And that's why we come with all these topical topics to you. Thank you very much for everyone. We're grateful, Barrister Folarin Oloyede. I'm already speaking with, Angela is already listening. We have to bring you back because this is going back to the classroom and in a very simple format, in a very simple way, made it clear to us. And it's really, really an engaging session with you. Thank you so very much. We look forward to doing much of this again with you at some other time, and we'll be glad to have you at some other time. A lot of people are saying here, wonderful presentation. The comments and the feedback have been so wonderful. I want to thank you for this. For coming in. Thank you, Barrister. You want to say something for? You want to say what? Do you have anything to?
I just want to say thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I am Mr. Oh, there we go, way, way back. Right? You know, it's just in this official space that I'm calling him Mr. He's bro, he's our big bro. So thank you, sir, for being for being a good example to us, and you know, I will just drop this here. He taught me in Sunday school when I was in secondary school. So, I feel really, really delighted that I'm sitting on the same in the same panel like this to have this conversation with you. Thank you, sir. And my high regards to Mr. Obosi, the principal partner also, and we wish I and the CHLP team, we wish your team also a very, very a successful year and success in everything that you have to do. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister Folarin Oloyede, and thank you for everyone who's on this call. On this note, want to bring this webinar to a close and look forward to the one that will be coming up in April. We hope to see you. Try to invite other people. Go to our YouTube pages, like the YouTube pages, ensure that you watch the videos over and over again, and reach back to us with your questions. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you.